So this session will be covering basic rigging in Autodesk Maya. As this workshop is very complex, I've decided to do a recorded session of this to assist you in rigging a basic FK rig. In order to access the resources, make sure you're in Google Classroom AG501. Just scroll down from my post from the 21st of October, Basic Rigging in Autodesk Maya. Here you'll need to download the zip file of the Stone Golem zip. Basically open a new window as we always do. Download it and then unzip it. You need to make sure that the textures, these PSD files, and the controllers are all downloaded, as well as the FBX model. I've already downloaded mine. Then you want to fire up. Once you have Maya open, you want to create a new scene, entirely blank new scene, and then go to File, Import, and in my case go to my downloads and find that Stone Golem file that you've unzipped. And now I'm going to import that Stone Golem model FBX. Now if I zoom out, it should come in looking like this. If I press 6 on my screen, the texture should come up nicely. Now this model, when you bring it in, will be way too big. What I'm going to do in my outliner on the left here, you can also bring up the outliner in the Windows tab. I'm going to select all of the meshes, which will highlight it in your perspective mode, and I'm going to group them together, pressing down Ctrl G. Now you can rename that group model. And then using the scale tool on the toolbox on the left, I'm just going to scale it right down. Again, it's way too big when you import it to something about this size. Okay, so to get going, in terms of rigging in Maya, mine's already on the rigging mode, but on the top left here you might be default modeling or animation or rendering. Make sure you click it to rigging mode. Therefore you'll have all the kind of skeleton, skin and constrain tools on the top window files here. What I'm going to do is, in my panel layout on the left below the toolbar, if I click on this 4 screen here, I want to go onto front view. Now you can just hover your cursor where it says front Z, hover your cursor on top of that view, the front view, and press the space bar, and that will bring the front view into your full screen. And if I press 4, or alternatively on this little box at the top here below panels, I put it to wireframe. I want to make it see-through wireframe so I can see where I'm going to add my joints to my skeleton. Now once you've done that, click on skeleton up here near Windows. You might not be able to see this on the screen, but just below you should see create joints. And now you have the option to start putting where your joints are within the model mesh. So I'm going to start off putting my first joint here in the kind of the middle of the hips, and then putting one on the hip here, putting one on the knee, and then one down by the foot. Now once you've done that, you want to, on your keyboard, use the arrow buttons and press up, up again and up again to go back to your original first joint. The arrow keys on your keyboard help you navigate up and down the joint hierarchy, and you see on the outline on the left here there's a new hierarchy below the model called joint 1. That's basically your skeleton. Now, making sure it's selected again, I'm going to do the next side. So the hip, the knee, and then the foot, and then using those arrow keys pushing up, I can then select the hips and the legs. That's great, that's what I want. Then right below the kind of belly of the stone golem model, the default stone golem model, I'm going to create another joint. That's going to be for the torso. Then I'm going to put another joint up here above its head, and then I'm going to start doing the left arm. So I'm going to put a joint here for the shoulder, then another joint here for the elbow, and then the joint right where the hand is going to be. And then using those arrow buttons on your keyboard, just going to go up again right till you've got the top of this joint here, and then do the other side. So exactly the same basically. For the elbow and then the hand, and then go up and then up again, and then you've got the whole skeleton that you've created so far. Now if I go back to perspective mode, if I click on panel layout perspective, so I come out of the front view, if I rotate around, you'll see that that skeleton doesn't quite match up to where the model is. And the way to do that, if I press number 4 on my keyboard, wireframe, what you need to do, if you come off the joints here, just click on this on the cursor or select tool. What you can do is you can move each individual joint according to where the model is in perspective mode. So I'm going to now start off with the leg. I'm going to select the move tool, so I'm going to select that joint there. Using the move tool, just push it back a bit. I'm going to select that knee, push that forward a bit, select that joint and push it back and line it up to the model. Just like so. Now I'm going to do the same to the other side, just going to push that forward a bit, sorry, back a bit, then the knee, push that forward, and then that one back. So you're kind of doing the same. The model's slightly different each side, so you have to kind of change the position of it. And then the same for the shoulders, so and the elbows. I'm going to push that back so it's in the middle of the elbow there. I'm going to make sure that hand controller is where I want it within the hand. These braces, ignore that for now, that'll be constrained to the elbow joint. So I'll do the other side. So I'm essentially lining up my skeleton to the model in wire mode. Then if I press 6, you could probably still see the skeleton, but it's nice and tucked where I want it within the model, this cool stone golem model. Now if I go to side view, so the way you can do that, go back to panel layout on the left here, and if I click on side X, so basically all you have to do is put your cursor on top of that view and then press the spacebar and then press 4 on your keyboard, then you can see the skeleton and the model in your side view. What I'm going to do now is start to just add a joint for the head. Now it can be quite tricky to find out what individual joint you want to attach it to. So if I go back here on the left here, select the joint tool, but I need to navigate the correct joint within the chain, what I can do is I can try and find it up on here. So that's where I want my head to be connected to. So joint 9, I'm simply going to put a joint for the head in the side view. And now if I go back to perspective mode, I can then adjust the position of that joint for the head. It's important to have a joint for the head to move individually within the rig. And then you can close that chain in the outliner. So I'm quite happy with that. It's very basic. It's kind of what I want. It's kind of cool. You can also, if you want, add some more joints to the feet. So again, going back into side view, if I select where those joints are within the hierarchy, I can then add another joint here, and then go into the other side. It can be quite complex, but you have to kind of navigate the joints within the hierarchy. And then you can then adjust those joints individually using the move tool. So once I've done that, I can select the entirety of the skeleton. It's good practice to go to skeleton. Once you've selected it, go to skeleton up here and go set preferred angle. So hopefully you can see that on the screen. Go to skeleton next to Windows and click on set preferred angle. So for whatever reason, if you move the joints around and it's in a weird position, you can then go back to skeleton and assume the preferred angle that you've just set. So once you've done that, what you can then do, in this case in terms of the stone golem, I'm just going to start attaching individual pieces of the rocks to the joints. Because it's not a regular human skinned character, I'm not going to skin it, I'm just going to attach them, again because it's a rock character. So if I select the skeleton and then shift on the keyboard, select the geomesh here, then go to constrain parent, that will now move that piece of rock, that geomesh, and that's great. Then the same for each component. So select the joint, shift select the rock, constrain parent. The same for the knee, and then make sure you always select the joint first and then the geo, not the other way around. And then go constrain parent, and then the same for the feet, constrain parent. So I'll do the other side, shift select the rock, constrain parent, same with the knee, constrain parent, same for the foot, constrain parent. Now for this upper bit for the torso, if I select this bit of this joint here and shift select torso, I'm then going to constrain that one. I'm going to ignore this one here, I'm not going to constrain this one specifically to anything, but if I select the head joint, shift select the geo and go constrain parent, and then the same for the shoulders, select that and then shift select the shoulder mesh, same for the elbow, constrain parent. Now I want the brace here to be connected to this elbow joint, So I'm going to select the elbow joint again, shift select the brace, and then constrain that one, and then the same for the hand. So just do that real quick. The other side, select the elbow joint, shift select the elbow polymesh, parent it, and then again the elbow, shift select the brace, constrain that, and then the hand joint, shift select the hand and parent it. So then if you select the whole skeleton and you move it around, it moves the entirety of the model. Okay, great. At this point you want to save your work, so go to File, Save Scene As, Rigging, Skeleton, and now what I want to do is I want to import my controllers, and again the controllers are buried within that zip file, the Stone Golem folder. So I'm simply going to go to File, Import, and then the controllers should be again in where the textures and the FBX model is. So I'm going to import them. These are pre-made controllers that I did earlier. Now the controllers are basically there for animators to animate the rig. You never want to animate the actual skeleton. That's like a big no-no in the industry, and also if people see that in your work, it will look amateurish. You always want to animate controllers on a rig, and basically either side usually there's a different color. For the right side it's blue controllers, left side red controllers, and then you can have any raw color you want, but I've chosen yellow for the central pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of these controllers, I'm going to move it across and line it up to where the hand is, and you can hold down V on your keyboard and snap it to the specific joint. And now what I'm going to do, and again you can alter it, you can rotate it, you can move it, maybe you can scale it up as well. So once I've done that, select the controller and then shift select the joint, and you're going to constrain that one. So now if I was to move that controller, it will move the whole hand, because you've already parented that joint to the hand geo, and then I'm constraining the controller to that individual joint. And then I'll grab another controller from this side, drag it all the way across, line it up, and again you can press V to line it up to the joint. You can shrink it down, that's fine, and move it, and then shift select that joint and go constrain parent. Now what you want to think about is you need to have a hierarchy when it comes to the controllers, so that controller needs to be beneath the elbow. So if you open up the chain here, it can be slightly misleading. You want to name these controllers as well, so say right hand, and then rename that right elbow. So I'm going to select the hand, middle mouse drop it onto the right elbow. So then if I select that elbow, there's a hierarchy that will also move the hand with it. Now that's a little bit complicated. You can rewind and rewatch that, but you have to create a hierarchy within the controllers. So I'm going to grab that controller, move it across, snap this to the elbow, and I'm going to adjust the shape of that controller slightly. I'm going to rotate it. I haven't attached it yet to the joint. So I'm fairly happy with that. I think that looks cool. And then I'm going to shift select the joint, shoulder joint, constrain parent, and I'm going to rename that controller right shoulder, and then I'm going to grab that elbow that we just did. I'm going to middle mouse button it and shove it on top of the right shoulder, so then we create this new hierarchy chain which moves the entire arm. Then I'm going to do the other side. Start with that hand, move it across, link it up to the hand here. Again, I can press V to do this. Rename it left hand, grab the elbow. Again, I can resize it, rotate it, and use the V button on my keyboard to match it up to the joint, should snap it to it. And then same again, shift select constrain parent, and then I want to rename that left elbow, and then left hand, I'm going to middle mouse drop it on top of that elbow, so you get the same thing. You can move that elbow and it moves the entire hand with it. So I'll do the shoulder as well. I'll move that across just like the other side. Again, it's always good to be in wireframe mode. And we're way off. Sometimes the snap tool can be a bit fiddly. You have to do it manually. And then shift select, not the geo but the joint, constrain parent, and then the same thing. I'm going to rename left shoulder, and I'm going to drag the left elbow middle mouse button on top of the shoulder there, and that will move the entire arm where I want it. For the body, I'm going to grab this controller, move it across. It's a nice big kind of fat controller for the torso. And when you've done that, I'm going to shift select that controller and then constrain parent. That should be already named torso. And then the head controller, this one, I'm going to bring across and line that up with the head, obviously. And then I can shift select the head joint do the same thing, constrain parent. Now the same thing, I want the head to be driven by the torso. So I'm going to grab the head, middle mouse button, put it on top of the torso. So when you move the torso, it will also move the head with it. Also, what I want to do is bring that right shoulder, middle mouse button, on top of the torso. And the same with the left shoulder, put it on top of the torso. So when you move the torso, it will move the entirety of that upper body of the rig. It's important that you do that, and it can be quite complicated. Now I'm going to use this controller, this kind of weird one. That's going to be the hips. I can move it up and then attach that to the central skeleton. Constrain parent it. I'm going to Control Z that because I haven't lined it up properly. Control Shift select parent. And then bring these controllers across as well. So that's going to be the hip controller. So I'm going to rename that left hip. Make sure I line it up with that joint. Shift select the joint, constrain parent. Now what I want to do again is I want to put that beneath the hip. So select the left hip, middle mouse button, put it on top of the hip there, so that hip will then move the hip leg. I'm going to carry on doing the other side, doing the other ones. Shift select the joint, constrain parent. I'm going to rename that left knee. And then shove that left knee onto the left hip. So then if you move that, it will move the entirety of the leg. And don't be afraid to unchain it with the plus and minus buttons to see where you are. And I'm going to bring that foot controller across and do the same thing. So line it up to where you want it. Select, shift select the joint and constrain it. And then I want that leg to be on top of the left knee. So again, when I move this, it will stay within the chain. Now I'll do the other side. It can be a little bit tedious, this task. That's rigging for you. Just going to rename that right hip. Then shift select the joint, constrain parent, and then I also want that right hip to be on top of the hip controllers. So bring that and the other controller in, do the same to the other side. Shift select the joint, constrain parent. Going to rename that one, so right knee. And then put that on top of right hip. and then the last controller there for that leg, bring it across, line it up with the foot, shift select the joint, constraint parent, and then put that leg onto the right knee, so middle mouse button. Another thing we need to do is we also need to link, actually no we don't, what we need to do is bring this controller across at the back, and what we can do is make sure this torso is then put on top of this one, so then that controller will move the top of the rig. Then I'm going to grab this controller, shove it over, that's going to be the main controller, and then I want the hip to go on top of the main controller, and then I want that arrow one, middle mouse button, put on top of the main controller as well. So when you select that main controller, it moves the entirety of the rig. This controller will move the top of the rig, and there you are, you've finished. If I press 6, there you have it, an FK fully rigged model, and you can start animating those controllers to your heart's content. Now, good practice as well, once you've done this, is to select the joints, select the model, and select the controllers in your outliner. Control G on your keyboard and call it Stone Golem Rig. Then if I just select the hierarchy there, the plus button, I want to hide the joints. Again, you never want to animate the joints or bones within a rig, you want to hide them. So I can do two things. I can go display, hide selection. That's my preferred way of doing it, or you can go to show and then show skeletons within the display in your display panel. I like to go select the joints, display, hide selection, and there you have it, your fully rigged FK Stone Golem rig. Thank you very much, and don't forget to save it. Stone Golem rig FK. Thank you very much.